Okay, let's get started. Just a reminder to sign in to the doc and to add any agenda items that you want to discuss. Let's get going. Okay, first agenda item is done. I don't see any new faces. Status updates. We bring up. So we have the initial implementation of the profile build pack ready. I think there are a couple of questions or issues open. One is writing integration tests. The other is Windows support, which I don't know, like, what's the plan there? Because shell scripts obviously don't work, like bash scripts won't work on Windows, and we have a very different interface for Windows Profile D, I think. We have .profile.batch files in Windows. I don't know how that interface works, to be fair. So that's still going to be open. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of status updates.
Yeah.
The build pack doesn't pass detection if it can't find bash anyway. So is that a big issue?
No, I mean it won't run either ways on like it won't run on Linux, non-Linux stacks anyway.
But basically the previous functionality had some profile thing for Windows is what you're saying, Sam, right?
You're very
Yeah.
quiet, not as loud.
Can you hear me now? Is that better? No.
I can hear you, Terrence.
Yeah, it's very faint. That's it.
Oh, hold on.
Oh, it's better.
Is that better now?
Yeah.
I was saying that the profile, there's like profile functionality in the existing lifecycle from the previous API, right? For Windows, basically. And this build pack does not, I guess, replace that. So that would be, I guess, technically like a net functionality loss.
Yeah. At least for now. Until we figure out some way to have better testing for Windows.
I mean, do we just need a Windows built specific build pack?
I guess I think we need like at least we'll have to create one version of it that works on Windows. Like it'll have to be separate binaries.
So you need some PE binaries at the end of this, and you need Linux binaries. And do you need OS 10 or Mac OS binaries?
No, we
No,
just there are no Mac OS containers. Yeah.
So the question is, do we want to, are you asking like, should we move forward without Windows or block on Windows?
Yeah.
Is that like the question? I guess what is the, I'm not super familiar because I felt like VMware was the big one pushing Windows containers. Do you know what we were doing for profile for Windows?
I know what it says on the spec, but nothing beyond that. On the spec, I believe says yeah,
So it's for one a
all
different
it
file name.
says in the full document. Nothing more.
So basically, we have to look at what it means to do bat
Yeah,
that file.
yeah.
It's probably like, I mean, if it's anything.
I'm guessing there's something that can run it, but yeah, like I think I'll point this out and I'll also ask where
Yeah, because I don't even know really what it means to run a batch file, because it's not like you get dropped into a shell environment where everything that is a child of that shell gets whatever set up in the profile.bat.
sourced.
Sourced, yeah. cmd.exe, right?
But yeah, I'll ask them, but on Salesforce side, I know because Joe was the one who was more concerned about this functionality being lost. Is there anything like any strong blockers on?
I mean, on the technically, we just care. We don't have Windows containers, so we just care about Linux. Obviously, from a spec thing, like it is kind of sad to lose Windows, but also I wonder how many people are using this.
Yes. I don't
I just don't know how many people in CNB are using Windows. I feel like Windows support was very much a VMware was a target customer use case.
Yeah.
But you know, like if we actually there's always the like people we don't know, I guess technically that aren't part of things, but in some ways I feel like we'll have to think about, or I think what the maybe Natalie knows, or I think if we want to do this, we would have to look at how it's implemented in lifecycle, right?
Yep.
And kind of reverse engineer that. Because I imagine adding whatever lifecycle is doing is probably not super complicated, right? Like once we look at the Go code.
Yeah. Depends on how lifecycle is doing it, but yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe it's
because it was not trivial to replace this for Linux, because lifecycle had the added benefit of just running this whole thing in one shell process. We couldn't do that, so we had to. I don't know if that will be possible for Windows, but we'll check.
And I feel like if it's super complicated, we could. I mean, feels bad, but I also feel like the blast area has to be pretty small.
Yeah.
So we could do it and then see if someone complains, as bad as that feels.
Yeah. Cool.
So all it does on Windows is the same thing it does on Linux, except that it just passes in the contents of the profiles file, or not even that, the path to the profiles file as a parameter to the shell launch. So there's a shell process struct. The profiles is a list of file names.
Yeah, and replacing that for Linux was possible, but we lost some functionality there as well. Like if you're creating functions for some reason in Bash and then using functions in subsequent shell commands, that's not something we support. It's not something we could have supported. I don't know what that means for Windows. Really have no idea. I don't know what the batch profile is capable of. I don't know what happens if we place it. But like cmd.exe must exist on every Windows thing, right? As
Container,
opposed
yeah.
to Linux containers where it can just be a scratch thing. So
Yeah, I think we opted not to do like PowerShell or something or require them containers. So I think it is cmd.exe.
yeah.
Is that because we maintain support for Windows 98 turns?
I think it's just because PowerShell has larger dependencies to kind of pull it in, but I don't know. It was like a discussion with Micah. I'm trying to recall, but he was kind of the. I don't know if he still works at VMware, but he was kind of the main
Does it?
driver for. Yeah. Seems like everyone I know that is doing build packs doesn't work at VMware anymore, besides like Javier and Natalie. So
I'll confirm with Natalie. She also worked on the Windows side of things for a long while, so she'll know something. Cool. Is there anything else?
no. Do you have thoughts on? I mean, we can do it after, I guess, the declarative build pack testing, but the Natalie's Slack thread on, I guess the spec.
Yeah, we discussed it in the last leadership meeting, but it still makes sense to release this because there is some functionality that we'll gain. I was gonna follow up with Natalie in the working group, but she was not able to make it yesterday, so we just decided to do it next week.
Next week.
Yeah. Okay, this thing. Actually, on a show a live demo. So this was something that we've needed simply because it was getting really cumbersome to write build pack tests. Especially integration tests in Go. Like the normal unit tests are fine to write in Go if your build packs are written in Go, but integration testing build packs in Go was getting a bit.
This integration test stuff when I was looking as language agnostic, right?
Yes, it is.
Like you can just set up the file and
it works for everything. Yeah, it's nothing Go specific. So you can declare files like these. So I've not written anything actually. I've just added the necessary pack and container structure test executors, which I'll explain in a while what they are. But it's built on top of this tool called Venom, which is a general purpose declarative integration test tool. So you can define files like these, and it will run them for you. And it's got a concept of executors, which are just like things that support. So there's a shell executor, there's an HTTP executor, and so on. And you can write your custom like user-defined executors, which are like you can make some predefined ones from a combination of these. So like you can write something that uses these executors and like just reuse it. So it's like a function essentially. So you can have created the following ones. So there's something that gives you back a random image name that's compatible with a clean image command, something that lets you run pack build with some predefined arguments, and something that lets you run container structure test, which is another tool that Google maintains that lets you easily define, again, declaratively define integration tests, but just for containers. So it can do things like run a command and check the output, check for the existence of certain files, check for the file contents, check for licenses, environment variables, or the container config. So you can check for labels, environment variables, expose ports, and so on. And then I've just provided a nice wrapper that lets you write these things in line with the rest of Venom, with the rest of the Venom test file. So here what I'm doing is generating a random image name, running pack build, checking the output image if it used the build packs that I expected it to use in a certain order, that they were detected and used. And finally running container structure test, running the default command and checking if it prints hello world.
What's the notation that you use in there? You're getting the
This one,
JSON output and then it's indexing into things.
that's just something that Venom uses. It's not something I've created. It's called, it's basically a JSON dumper. So it dumps JSON in a way that you can easily access it. And that's what this uses. It's called this thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. It's all in Venom's documentation. Like I'm not using anything outside of that. I'm just reusing what it provides.
So you basically have to like learn Venom to use this, right?
Yeah.
So it's not using some kind of JQ syntax or anything like that. It's got its own micro syntax.
Yeah, but you can also use JQ.
True. Okay, sweet.
So what is this test doing? So you're testing the it builds a Go application.
Yeah, and the Go application does what I expect it to do.
For these assertions here, why are you testing that the build packs should equal these Paqueta ones?
Because I'm running a specific builder and I want to check if certain build packs were detected and used.
Oh, I see. So this is just pulling it from some label.
Yeah, so like the pack executor that I have provides like the logs, the exit code from pack, the actual pack command that was used to run it, and pack inspect output.
Oh, I see. That's a thing you define. It doesn't magically
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
So in Venom, how do I guess, check those things? If you go back to test YAML. Is result just a thing that gets returned
Yeah.
from your pack thing, and then image info JSON is defined in your pack YAML as a BASI object or
Yeah.
kind
So
of key
like,
value thing.
yeah. A lot of it is like Venom specific things. So like you can only output strings, but Venom has this thing where it, if you give it a string and add JSON on top of it, it will try and parse it
Oh,
and
I see.
give you this notation.
So then you can basically index into
Yeah.
the JSON keys and stuff.
Yeah. So it supports things like for loops, assertions, skips, conditionals, and like,
So if I wanted to check output in here, would I just add a new row
yeah,
into
you'll be
this
like,
thing, and then
row,
it's like whatever, like system command?
yeah,
Okay.
something, yeah. So like that's from the output of pack build though. For container tests, what I end up using is just this container structure test, which has the like sort of things that I just talked about. So it returns exit code 0 or 1, but it also returns this output JSON, which I again pass it back. So like if you want to check if a certain test passed or failed, you can also do that. So you can just define all the tests in line here. So here what I'm doing is just creating a command test called default, running the default binary, which is called workspace in the image, and then checking if the output contains hello world, which it should. You can imagine that I like spin up a container and then use the Venom HTTP executor to check if the API is returning something.
I see. Can you in container test just like move around on the file system, I assume, as well, and not execute?
What?
Oh, just like check existence of stuff on the file system.
Yeah, so there's like file contents test, and then there's file existence tests.
Gotcha.
And even for the command test, like it's got a pretty good support. So like you can run some setup commands before you actually run your main command. And then you can check the expected output error or exit code, or you can also set environment variables before the command is run, and you can set up some tear down command as well. This is pretty much like all we need, at least for replacing all of our tests. It's not a lot of effort.
Are you using Venom at Bloomberg?
No, we're not. But this was just an exercise to see if we can. It was just a POC. It's like I know we talked about it in the past about a language agnostic declarative integration test system. So I just wanted to talk about it.
What is the process for sharing things in Venom?
It's not great. You essentially have to get this lib folder, which contains a bunch of YAMLs from somewhere, and put it on your Venom lib directory. So either this file goes in your test folder or it goes in one of the specified paths and sources it from there. There's no plugin system. There's no plugin manager or something like that.
Gotcha. So basically, we would have to vendor this in every single build pack.
Or like if this is something that's interesting, we can also just embed all of this into a binary. Like just create a Go binary, like all of these things that I'm using are Go libraries, so I can just embed it and
create an extended Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah, the downside of that, I guess, is like you would have to update it every time Venom gets updated. How often is that?
How often is Venom updated?
Yeah, I guess like how actively developed is Venom? Like, is it being released pretty regularly?
It's actively developed. It gets, so the last stable release was on 13th of December, but they released like beta versions 8 days ago. So like they release somewhat regularly. Not that often. The development is more quick. So like if we use it as a Go library, we can also just get the latest code from the master branch and use that to cut our own version releases. But it's something you have to manage. Like it's.
Yeah, can we do like a dependent bot thing?
Yeah, probably.
Where like basically anytime there actually is a, Well, actually, I don't know how that works for Go.
It works just like everything else. We do it for lifecycle, we do it for pack, we do it for libcnb. Every time a new version is released, it pumps it.
And we would probably just cut a new release for us.
Yeah. I don't know how, like, what's your test process like for build packs?
We have a bunch of. We used to have we had a tool called Hatchet for classic build packs, which was this Ruby runner that would basically orchestrate and run stuff on the Heroku platform for kind of end-to-end integration testing. And then we wrote a thing that kind of interacts with like the Docker socket to kind of do that. And I think Manuel wrote a thing in Rust that does something similar with like sockets and other things in Rust with some Rust library. So I think that's what we're using now.
But you write your code in Rust.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any appetite to making it non-Rust? Like, what kind of integration tests do you run? Are they complex and dynamic enough that they need to be written in a programming language, or?
I mean, I think they're written in Rust because our stuff is written in Rust. But let me see if I have an example. That one's pretty simple.
For us, most of it, I think like these three things just cover almost everything that we test on generally. Like running some command, checking the output.
If you want to open that potentially,
What?
just share it
The
in
chat.
chat.
Which chat?
Zoom chat.
Ah, okay. Which one?
Oh, just these are like the tests for our Maven build pack.
Oh, okay.
So we have like a test runner that basically calls and runs pack. You can set up some build config, and then I think doing similar things.
Yeah. So it just runs pack, then checks if the pack output contains something.
Yeah, I think it's like doing a lot of very similar things.
Okay. Yeah, looks like running a shell command, then checking things. Yeah. Using, so this is some set of build packs. This is the path to the source code directory, I'm guessing.
Yep.
And then is this checking if the output contains this build pack, or if it's using, like, what does this mean?
I think this is, so the first one is the build config. I think that's stack. Heroku build packs 20 is like the builder.
Okay.
And then the second one's the app. And I think build packs vec is just use these build packs. So
Okay.
use the Heroku JVM build pack, which is not the current build pack, right? And then create is use this build pack. So put these build packs in the list, right? So this is not a test, right? This is just config.
And then it's setting the environment variable, then checking if the pack output contains these lines, right?
Yep.
Okay. Which is
so I feel like it's very similar. I think probably the only benefit is code sharing, really.
Yeah.
Like if I want to implement all these tests, right, in Venom, like how do I make sure I don't have to repeat all the setup for all these things if I want to do like.
That's what this library is. So like you can define your own libs. So they're like fixtures. I don't know if Rust has some similar concept, but like reusable pieces of test code that you just want to run again and again. So the syntax that you see here, like all these steps for a test case, you can extract that, parameterize it with some inputs and outputs, and then just like run these things here. So like you can put in assertions, you can get some output, you can run some commands, and then if you want to use them, you just define the input variables and check the output. Same thing for like it also allows you to range over things, so you can define an array, and once you have your like this library or custom executor defined, you can range over that array, run your custom executor for each of those things, and then check the output. Code sharing works. It's just like you have to essentially figure out somewhere to keep these files.
Right.
There's no publishing system, there's no repository, so like you can't publish your test code somewhere. So like if you're using it across repositories, it's going to be a pain. But I guess even for these are these like some, is this like libcnb test some common thing that you use?
Yeah, there's a libcnbrs or something.
But that's just doing this, right? Like running
Yeah. Yeah, I meant for like they have that config, right? Like so you imagine that file you had or was that customization test? Was that it? Where it was like defining config of like stack, blah blah, you know, at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like basically you would imagine you'd want to define this somewhere.
Yeah.
And then reuse it, right? So like in every single Venom test, you're not writing that out each time, right? So like you would probably want to write a thing that defines this and then basically use that and like use that, I guess, lib kind of Venom file.
Yeah.
And
So
to actually execute the test.
Yeah. If it's repository specific, then it's very easy. So like if it's within a repository, you just check in your common things somewhere, and then in your test entry point, just use that.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, like a V whatever of this, if we're actually wrapping Venom, potentially we could implement our own plugin system on top or something if we really wanted.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this because like this was not a lot of work. It was just writing these files. But better than anything we have right now.
How are you doing tests at Bloomberg for your bugs?
Occam.
Would you want to move away from Occam to Venom?
It's verbose, yes. I want to get rid of all this verbosity. I want to have more tests for our build packs. So anything that increases the amount of tests with a very low amount of burden on the developer, I would be up for that.
Yeah, Occam's very nice, but it doesn't look like it does any more than what we'd get with Venom. So
because it says use Venom to extend your tests, integration tests.
I mean, yeah. So like, I wanted to replicate everything that Occam did, but make it Venom native. They use Venom, but they're like, it's like another orchestration layer on top of Venom, and then they add support for container structure tests and packs separately. And rather than these being three separate things, I just wanted Venom to be the top thing and to include pack and
right. I mean, it makes sense they do this because Venom doesn't support plugins, right?
Yeah.
So this is just like a distribution mechanism to package everything together.
Not necessarily, because they still use Go code to create the images.
Yeah, but like this is just their implementation of how they decide to package it together. And
yeah, this Venom thing was very recent, and
Okay,
because
so it's
actually
not
it
built
doesn't.
on top of Venom
No, no,
initially.
no, no.
And
It's a
presumably it gives
recent
you,
addition as a plugin. No one actually uses it in Picketo. Like if you look
I
at
see.
Picketo and try to find Venom, there's like no tests. All the tests are written in Go.
but presumably that gives them a test runner for it. So if you're writing your integration tests in Venom in Occam, then they run as part of the same Go test run that everything
Yep.
else runs.
I see. So it's like an extension, not how it runs everything underneath.
Yep.
But this could be a cheap way of injecting the suites or the stack definitions terms, like you were saying, into the YAML. Yeah, you could and then run the YAML this way. So an Occam test that injects the stack into the YAML and then runs the Venom test.
That's a very roundabout way of doing it. Using make to run Go integration test to call another binary that's going to run other integration tests. I would just call make to run Venom.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is cool. I wonder for ease of use, like if we do want to do the wrapping thing, like you're suggesting,
Yeah.
it's more overhead. We have to keep it updated. But I feel like it just feels super gross to like have to vendor some lib
Yep.
thing in every build pack, and then just like what happens when like potentially we might change, like that's a thing, right? It's like I think we might potentially update or change these lib things, especially as pack changes, as whatever. Maybe we'll have more opinions as it's being used more too, of
Yep.
like, oh, whatever feature like I don't know, it's like weird to talk about features, but it's like interface something to do this better, right? Or maybe Venom actually does a change that allows us to make these files better, right? And it's just like it means every build pack author who's using this thing has to basically either update or be left in the dust, right? And that feels bad.
For us, like what I was thinking of doing was just put like a test container image and just put all of these things there, provide an entry point that runs it. So
Yeah.
like you give us your config files
Yeah.
and the container runs it. Don't have to worry about
So the
anything.
container bundles pack.yaml and cst.yaml, and you just pointed at your YAML files in your workspace.
Yeah.
And that's a cheap way of
It bundles the Venom binary, so we can just
Yeah.
update it by downloading the binary. It renders, contains a copy of container structure test.
Yeah.
Contains a copy of these files. So like every time I have to update, I just update the container image rather than everything else. Again, this is not something I want us to support. I was just showing that like this was an experiment I did.
You don't want us to support it?
I mean, I wanted to show it off and ask whether it looks sane and whether we want something like this. And to start the discussion on this, because I felt like we started this RFC and then like nothing happened beyond that. So I just wanted to continue on it. Like show a proof of concept to motivate that RFC that like doing something like this is doable and it's not a lot of work.
I mean, I think any language agnostic tooling we can have would probably be a win.
Yeah.
Like I actually don't know how Joe is doing integration tests for his bash build packs.
Yeah.
And I know Salesforce, where Joe is also doing other build pack stuff, he has literally like in the same build pack thing like Python, Bash, and Go code.
Yeah.
And so it's just like something language agnostic would probably be nice if you have these different developers developing these build packs, right?
Yep. Anyway, that's all I had.
I guess what are next steps on that stuff?
I don't know, like first need just like need, I guess, more comments from other people, whether this is something that looks doable, whether these technology choices I've made make sense, how we want to distribute this, use this, whether it's something that Salesforce or VMware might benefit from, in which case we might look into like putting some more work on top of it. Otherwise,
Does Bloomberg has its own build packs that aren't Paketo, right?
yeah, we have like a mix of things.
Would you use this over Occam?
Yes, if we get it in a good enough shape, yes. I think the last thing I have to figure out is parallelization.
Does Occam paralyze?
No, what Go does.
The Go test runner's got a parallel specification.
I see. Does Venom have paralyze?
It used to, they removed it.
In our wrapper, we could, I mean, you can
Add
essentially
parallel,
execute,
yeah.
run more than one Venom based off of some parallelization config, right?
That's what they put in the commit that they removed it. Like it's very easy to parallelize it, so just use
Just
that.
do it yourself by hand. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Let me show you. So
Is
this
It's like,
was the.
I feel like it's like giving someone the middle finger.
I mean, just go back to GNU parallel.
Yeah.
This is what they had previously, and they just removed it.
Yeah. Well, because I feel like the yeah, it's a parallel. Wait, but does it auto split the stuff for you?
It used to, not anymore.
Like the command they show, like this doesn't split it for you, does it?
Well, it has Globstar support, right? So
Oh, I see.
it would just you would split it per file and it would run one file at a time.
So it would just run multiple files in parallel, depending on the J. That's probably okay for now, I guess.
I mean, it's because they allow serial execution of test cases because they allow future test cases to refer to outputs from the previous ones.
So it's more like a workflow than it is an integration test thing.
I mean, every test case runner can be considered a workflow of some sorts. Like the boundary is very.
But is that just within a single file?
Yeah, within a single file.
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
It just runs it serially and allows you to reference previous variables.
That makes sense. Well, just implementing CI systems at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, like we have something declarative for our smoke tests. So like things that actually build the things and run them on actual systems. That works out well, but we don't have anything good for integration tests. We have something good for unit tests because Go with unit tests, like I wouldn't switch the language. Let's just do exactly what we want. So like whatever language you're writing in your build packs and your unit test should be in the same language ideally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Integration tests, it's just we use Go because it's convenient, but doesn't have to be. And then for system tests, we have something so completely separate.
I see. Wait, what do you do for system tests?
like system testing involve like certain libraries in ensuring that they actually work and can reach out to and are compatible with like things that they're supposed to reach out to and be compatible with, as opposed to running it on a test box. It runs on the actual cluster is what I mean.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So that's like actual live. If you
Yeah,
like the
smoke
Hatchet
tests.
test we had that ran on the Roku platform.
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
where we expect to run it.
Yeah. So like making sure whatever interfaces we have are actually compatible with the runtime.
Makes sense. Do you all have build packs actually written in Python? Or does it all Go?
It's all go now.
So is your Python libcmb dead?
Yeah, mostly. It's too much of a pain to distribute them.
Because of packaging?
Yeah, packaging and also compatibility. Like it will work on just a subset of stacks. It's also makes fat binaries. Like they are large, they're slow.
Because they need to ship a Python interpreter.
Like even a lot of our tooling, just like rewriting it in Go makes it fast. Like especially when you're doing network calls and file IO. Like, Python sucks at it. The amount of plumbing you have to do to make it concurrent versus doing the same thing in Go is like,
Yeah, I guess partly it's just like my build pack builds generally don't need to be the speediest thing. Like most people are willing to accept some performance hit for like builds versus runtime. Like I definitely if I had to pick, care more about performance for runtime. Not that I don't care about performance for builds, but
care a lot about build time performance. Because for us, people are iterating quickly again and again, and they expect the image to be ready in a couple of minutes. So we can't afford to have like 20-minute or 10-minute build times. That's just not what we do.
is that how slow the Python stuff is in comparison?
No, we never tried it beyond a certain point. Like I wrote one couple of test things in it, and then once we were out of the prototype stage, we just went all in on Go. It was just easier and better. Plus, like I think almost all of our team members now know Go or use Go, which has been
Which is why we now need to move to Rust.
Yep, even faster. I feel like that probably doesn't matter that much for build time. Runtime's maybe a different issue, but
yep.
close to the metal, circumvent the Go runtime.
What?
It's closer to the metal, circumvents the Rust runtime's even smaller.
Yeah. Does Rust let you create scratch images?
What do you mean? Like no dependencies on the stack image?
No, like scratch. Like blank file system, just your application binary, nothing else.
Unsure.
Does it let you create that easily? Because you can also do it with other languages, but it's not easy.
It uses glibc by default, apparently.
Yeah, I think it uses glibc by default.
And then I think unlikely then. It's like either all the things that we see use Musel, and then they work on Scratch-based things because it allows static linking.
Yeah, you can definitely use muscle, however you pronounce it. Yeah, like we compile our stuff with muscle for production.
Oh, okay.
Because that way we can then use it on multiple stacks and not be dependent on the glibc underneath for obvious reasons. If that's all it takes to run on Scratch, then I guess yes, it's not super hard to do. I mean, at least that gets you to be glibc independent, right? And statically compile it.
I need to go.
I need to go on holiday.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
It is.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah.
See you all in a week or two.
Yep. Cheers.
Ciao.
Yes.